when you have kids, they know all your buttons. And in a sense, they're just mirroring your lack of presence back to them. When they're like, mom, dad, mom, what they're asking for is real presence, which is what I believe that, we're here for, real relationships, not just with people, with planet, with ourselves. But I think there's something really, really valuable to it. And then to segue that into what's going on with big data and everything like that. What's funny is I was just, I drove here. It's about a 12-hour drive from Nashville to Austin yesterday. And I listened to the entire book by Yuval Noah Harari, who is basically a mouthpiece. And I don't say that in a derogatory term, but he's in the ear of Klaus Schwab very deeply. They counsel with one another. And so listening to his books, this book specifically, Homo Deus, he wrote the book Sapiens, which I think is great. And this book was great. It just reveals the philosophy that they're going through, which is basically like, how did we get to this point of humans where we believe we're the apex? And are we really, do we have free will? Do we have a soul? Do we have an eternal aspect to us? Or are we explainable down to just biochemicals and neurons? Like that can explain everything. And then he just doesn't really fully answer it. He just poses the question and he hops directly into, well, it's obvious that algorithms are eventually, especially in this decade, algorithms are going to be able to answer your biggest questions for you better than you can, such as who should I marry? And he goes on to give examples like, well, I know that you think John is better looking and that's probably why he's the better mate, but you would be happier with Paul, who's more stable and more, blah, blah, blah. And the algorithm seems to know this. And he's saying this as he's leading towards this new religion he's calling Dadaism. What is the post-human religion of not what humans are, but what is the post-human religion? It's scientism, it's Dadaism. And he's super well read, so it's hard to argue with 90% of what he's talking about. But when he makes these certain factual leaps, like religion is the one end-all be-all explanation as to why Afghanistan is more violent than the Netherlands, atheist Netherlands. And I would say he's not fully wrong about that. He's just not complete with his thought process. And when he's saying that an algorithm can tell you who you should marry and how many kids you should have, or if you should have kids, and whether Angelina Jolie was right to preemptively have a mastectomy and remove mass in her breasts in order to avoid what her mom and her grandmother had in the form of breast cancer, that these algorithms will be able to tell what you want better than you. And what is a human anyway? At the end of the day, it's just data streams and data flows. So shouldn't we just open source every secret about us and give it up to the algorithms? Because that will allow them to make our lives better and we can get on with whatever we're headed towards. So and by the way, he doesn't say that he thinks that humanity will be around for much longer. He just says this is inevitable. So he's not selling his idea. And mind you, he's in the ear of Klaus Schwab. He's not selling his ideas on how sexy they are. Like, oh, it's going to make your life so much better. No, he's just like, this is inevitable. This is just what evolution has done from previous kingdoms all the way up into the human kingdom. And we're just a ripple of data streams. So just basically give all that up to the algorithms and the machine, let it do what it's going to do. And it's that this is the religion. This is the Dadaism and the scientism that an algorithm, when I say, I want to know who I should marry, and the algorithm has gone through more data than we can go through, then it says that it must be right because it went through more data. But when we ask a question like, who should I marry? We don't even know what drives that question. So there's no way that the algorithm or the computer could ever know the driver of why we asked the certain questions. It's like, what lies beyond the question, what kind of job should I have? What kind of person should I marry? Should I have kids? Yes, those computers might be able to sift through mountains of data and give you a very formulated answer, but they're basically just making these leaps of faith saying like, but it's inevitable that this is where computers are headed and they're going to be smarter than us in 10 years. So we might as well start getting used to this big change that's happening, this global reset, the fourth industrial revolution. So I find that really fascinating. That's the main thing where data and big data is headed, is The reason why big data is bigger than big oil is because there's a philosophy that is turning into a religion called scientism. And people now are looking at the world and they're like, huh, man, I'm not making enough money. So I must be doing something wrong. And why are these data companies and these technocrats making so much more money? Probably because they're doing something right. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is just a logical, cruel, concrete digital world. And, you know, basically the only way to be happy is to let the algorithms tell you what happiness is. Oh, there's no such thing as magic. It's just science. You know, I think that's where people are headed, is a resignation to the machine.
Yeah, dude, you've touched on so much shit, dude. You are 100% correct.